Welcome on into the Stroke Let It Reach podcast. I'm your host, Nick. Here's my co-host, Mike. And this is the Week 1 recap for the Week 1 of college football. And it was such an exciting Week 1 of college football. We had chaos everywhere, to be honest. Not so much losing chaos, Mike, but a lot of close games that's going to be fun to talk about. I want to start off this podcast by saying, Florida, I honestly feel bad for Florida fans. As an Auburn fan, I know where you're coming from, right? You think you have a chance. I thought you had a chance.
I did not think they had a chance.
You come out and you probably play the worst brand of Florida football I have seen since the Jim McElwain era. I will say that. And that just goes back to Florida firing Dan Mullen after having 3 New Year's 6 bowl game appearances and then getting fired during COVID year when everything was crazy. And here we are. We're at Billy Napier, absolutely just shitting the bed, not prepared. But before we get into that, Mike, I'll go ahead and say I'm a man of my word. I'm going to eat the chip. I'm going to order it, and we're going to eat the chip. It's going to be live on air. I will. Okay. That being said, I want to start off, Mike, real quick, and just talk about how great betting was for us this week.
Could have been better. For me, it could have been a little better. West Virginia fucked me, all of my legs looked amazing, and then that game just didn't go my way. And we'll talk about that game.
We'll talk about it, yeah. I just wanted to bring it up real quick. I thought we'd start off every usually it's going to be, you guys are going to hear this on Tuesdays. However, with the game on Monday, we wanted to push it back a day just so we can get all the games in there. We didn't know what was going to happen in the Florida State game, and now we do. I'm sorry, Florida State fans. I feel your pain. But that being said, I'm going to call this segment every day, Mike, that they'll be able to hear it on Tuesday mornings as Show Me the Money, right? Put the money where our mouth is on our best bets. That being said, you guys know the rules. $100 for each line of our bets that we put. The hammer, the hot take, the dog. That being said, your boy here, 3 for 3, $300 wagered, $790 earned. That is a total return of $491 and 164% return on investment. Mike Spaney coming in hot, $300 wagered, $428.33 earned. That's clearing $128 total with a 43% return on investment. Josh, we feel bad for you. The West Virginia bet really fucked you because the North Dakota State one did hit, and you had them parlayed together. That being said, Josh made $190.91. He lost total $109 with a negative 64% on return. But, hey, you got a lot of time to make it up this college football season. And, guys, this is the time to follow us closely. NFL starts this week, and we're only going to keep going to the moon here. There's no way we're going to fuck this up, right, Mike?
Oh.
I don't think so.
We'll find a way.
Who knows? It's chaos. Football is chaos, especially in college. That being said, just wanted to call that, show me the money real quick, and let's get in to the first game. And we'll start off with Florida-Miami. The first thing I want to talk about, Mike, is, man, I have never been so quick to tell you after week 1 a coach is fired. But not only was your on-the-field performance abysmal and the worst I've seen Florida play in a long time, since Jim McElwain lost to Samford, to Georgia Southern, who now they have this week coming up Samford, who they gave up, 20 points a year or two ago? 40 points a year or two ago?
I'm pretty sure it was like 53-62 or something like that.
Crazy shit. But that being said, Billy Napier goes even more fucking crazy, and he doubles down in his press conference. For you guys who didn't follow, football as closely as we do, because we're absolutely football. I can't even say it. Football
druggies.
Yep, that's a good one too, as well. Billy Napier in his post-game press conference, or I lied, his Monday morning press conference, they're asking him pretty brutal questions, right? I think I can understand coaches might be frustrated, but hey, you're a head football coach. You're the CEO of a football team. You've got to, coming after your own fan base is the worst thing he could do in this situation where he's already on the hot seat. This man told a reporter after he got pissed off at the question he asked, word for word, this is not verbatim, this is word for word, folks. This is what Billy Napier said to this reporter. if we can focus and not necessarily on what some guy in his basement is saying in rural Central Florida on social media, then we got a chance to get better. Is that fucking insane or what? What do you mean? First off, this is not.
What does that even mean, Kobe Bryant?
First off, Mike, before we even start, this is not year 3. This is year 1. This is not year 1. This is year 3. My bad. Sorry, totally fucked. This is not year 1. This is year 3. You're telling me you can't convince your football players not to pay attention to social media? Like, what kind of culture are you building? It's fucked up. 2, basement. We live in Florida. Nobody has fucking basements, okay? Somebody may have a bomb shelter. Some crazy fuck might have a bomb shelter in case of a nuclear apocalypse, but there is nobody in Central Florida that's got a fucking basement. And attacking your fan base is wild, Mike. To think about it, they've lost 6 in a row, 8 of their last 13, right? The problem's not the fans. There was 93,000 people there on Saturday. They're on a 5-game losing streak, okay? 5-game losing streak. This is not including the bowl game. That's how I got the 6, right? That's insane. That is insane. The fans are never the issue at Florida. Even though they're arrogant as they are, those fans will show up and sell out a game no matter who the fuck they play, right? So to say that was the problem is insane. He has fallen off the cliff. There's no coming back.
No, he definitely signed his death sentence there. Yeah. I mean, coming from a Miami fan, fans don't enjoy coming to games to watch mediocre play. If you're going to go out there and not give your best effort and you're just going to undersell the fans and give them a piss-poor performance, they're not showing up.
Yep.
Look at Miami for the past 15 years.
Well, on top of it, Florida, whether you like them or not, has one of the biggest fan followings in the world.
They come out and sell out and show up for every game, and you just give them
Rain or shine.
subpar performance after subpar performance. The fan base is going to start dripping away eventually. You're going to lose the support.
Yeah. And not to mention, you had 93,000 people there that had to watch your mediocre performance in 100-degree heat with no wind. Yeah. So they're already pissed off, right? That being said, Florida was undisciplined and had 0 execution, right? Absolutely 0 execution out there. They had penalties at crucial times. They gave up a pass interference, or not pass interference, a roughing the passer in the first drive of the game that would have held Miami to a field goal, right? They're missing assignments all over the place, not covering people, not fitting the run gaps where they need to. They absolutely look like they had no fight.
1 for 9 on third down conversions. Their only points were Cam Ward fuck up turnover early. They got held to 3, even though they got the ball on the 25-yard line. A 70-yard touchdown run from Montrell Johnson because some guys fucked up and they got corrected. And then garbage time touchdown when DJ Lagway was in.
Yep, so penalties at crucial times, missing assignments, no fight, locker room problems, you're cooked. You're cooked as a coach. You've got nothing going right. That being said, we're done talking about how shitty Florida is. Let's talk about this Miami team. Let's talk about how they played. Let's talk about how the rest of the season is going to play out for them. Because after that performance, their season gets a lot more exciting, in my opinion. Cam Ward, welcome to the show. 26 of 35, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. The interception was a bad mistake. However, that's something that easily can be corrected when they get into the film room and go, look, dude, you play in you played against the SEC, you're playing in the ACC now, you're playing against severely better competition than last year. You cannot throw across your body on the run back to the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. I don't think you see that again.
No, because he's able to make throws on the run, and he's able to make those type of throws. Like, he made a couple of those type of throws in the game. One of them was the touchdown to Jacoby George. Yeah. But
there's a difference between rolling out and throwing it towards where you're looking and then looking backwards.
Throwing cross body all the way back towards the center right side of the field.
Because for people that haven't played football, the thing is when you're rolling out, you can see everything the way you're rolling. You're watching the defenders move, you're watching receivers move, but the minute you throw it back across your body, across the field, you have to remember, at that whole time you're rolling out, you weren't paying attention to the backside defense. So at that point, you have no idea where the defenders are. That's why the interception happens, because you don't see where they're at.
And it's significantly harder to throw a ball on the fucking money that way.
Yep.
He threw the ball a little too high, went over the receiver he tried to throw to.
Yep. It's just a mistake. It's going to be corrected. But I think one of the biggest takeaways, because I'm not so much as a stat guy when it comes to good play, I like to look at his performance, right? And his on-field thing. His confidence to me is huge, right? Very composed in a hostile environment, never rattled. Yeah,
you saw it early, even on the plays he scrambled when he's just pretty much walking down the sideline because he knows no one's going to touch him.
That's another thing.
No worry in the world. Like, dude literally came out there as like, I live here.
That goes to my fight with Florida, too. I'll take the 15-yard penalty if you hit that motherfucker right there.
When you're walking down the sideline, like, I got scared. I see my quarterback walking down the sideline, not even out of bounds, like, oh, fuck, he's about to get fucking laid out.
So Cam Ward, dog, took that from the performance. Very good season coming up for him, especially with, you'd have to imagine there's going to be a lot of games where, believe it or not, you can say what you want about Florida. He's going to have a lot of games with way less talent than Florida has on defense. Xavier Restrepo shows you why he should be a first-round draft pick. 7 receptions, 112 yards, a touchdown, tore a man's ACL on a juke.
I mean, his ACL.
Looked like it. My man was fucking,
that was a joke if people were putting out. The dude cramped up, but I respect it.
Looks awesome. Love it. Rushing attack for, that was the one thing I took away from Miami. You'll see these stats here, 144 yards on 33 attempts, 4.5 yards per carry. Personally, I'm going to tell you that probably 20 of those attempts came in the second half. Miami didn't run the ball much in the first half because they were lighting it up in the air.
No, they didn't have to.
I think they honestly took their foot off the gas and they started running the ball, and they still were scoring. So I think that's where a lot of those attempts were coming up. So I think that kind of skewed the yards per carry. They were gashing them the entire time.
For sure. We put our fifth-string running back in to just start getting attempts and getting looks. True freshman Jordan Lyle. And, I mean...
I think, yeah. I mean, I was just going to say, if you have to take any negative away this week from Miami, it's the injury report. The fact that Ruben Bain Jr., in the Monday press conference with Coach Cristobal, he said he's going to be out for a couple weeks with a soft tissue injury in his knee.
Yeah, they expect him to be back in 2 weeks.
Something to monitor, and they said they'll have more status about him in the next coming weeks to talk about. Just something to watch there.
Corner. He had the same injury and was first drive as well.
The good news for Miami is the pass rush is elite. They could just prove right there that they have the best D-line in the country. So I think they'll be fine without him. And there's not that many big games in the front end of their schedule where they actually need him in those games. No. So in my opinion, you sit him until he's 100%. And then you let him come back out there and wreak havoc. Miami with 3 sacks on defense is huge. 3 sacks on defense. And that is just because the only reason they had 3 sacks could have been 7 in my opinion. Graham Mertz did a great job of getting rid of the football when the pocket collapsed. So that sack number could have went up significant amount more. But ultimately, what a game for Miami. With the way the ACC is unfolding right now, with Florida State being, for lack of a better term, in absolute disarray, right? Just looks poor. Virginia Tech losing to Vandy, right? NC State struggling against Western Carolina, who I expect NC State to bounce back from that, but I think that kind of shows maybe they're a little bit worse than we thought. Miami could easily run the table. I think they can go 12-0, and they can get to the playoff. Even barring some loss that they shouldn't lose, 11-1, they're making the playoff, they're getting in. I honestly think it'd be a terrible coaching decision or a coaching job if they didn't make the playoff. But that being said...
Yeah, if missing playoffs is an absolute failure at this point.
I think this team is talented enough where there's not going to be a game where the coaches can fuck them. I think they're just going to go out there and they're going to ball and they're going to play good. So, ultimately, hats off to Miami. Florida, I feel your pain. It really sucks. Man, if you're a Florida fan, just go into hibernation for the rest of the year. I don't care who you play. I know the fans are going to be hyped up when Texas A&M comes in town. If you can't beat Texas A&M, who played very poorly on offense, which I don't think you can, it's going to be a long season because Texas A&M, low-key on your schedule, them and Kentucky are the easiest chances you have to win an SEC game.
SEC game.
And I don't think you're just the disarray of your team. You got the talent to beat both of them, but I don't think your team is ready. I think your players have quit already.
When you got players in the locker room posting Instagram stories saying, fuck this team, you've lost the locker room. You're losing recruits. The fan base is already screaming for Graham Mertz's head as if he wasn't a fucking savior for y'all last year.
Yeah.
Something I want to key in about Miami, though, is Miami showed how the transfer portal is supposed to be conducted. Florida State's biggest issue and like how they've been looked at as probably treating transfer portal wrong is that they try to build their entire team off that transfer portal, and it's just not correct. It's not working. Where the vast majority of Miami's roster is homegrown talent. However, quarterback, Cam Ward, transfer. Starting running back, Damian Martinez, transfer from Oregon State. The 4 guys underneath him that are all playing are all homegrown. O-line, everyone's homegrown talent except for the center, Zach Carpenter. He just got ACC honors. Same with Cam Ward. Then when you go to the defense, the Tennessee edge, Tyler Barron Jr., transfer from Tennessee. The D tackle, transfer from Marshall. And then our safety, transfer Michelle Powell from Washington, who's the guy who got the pick and dropped the second one from Graham Mertz. Yeah. Everyone else is homegrown talent, so it's like it's not trying to develop the entire team, but fixing some holes that you might have with some veteran leadership. And I think that's exactly what Miami went out to do, and it's working for them.
Mm-hmm. And, Mike, I'll ask you as a Miami fan, but I just wrote a little something down here on my notebook to ask you. But could this year be set up to be one of the greatest years for Miami since the early 2000s?
I've told you in this offseason, I've told Josh, I've told a couple of our buddies, I told Matt, before this season started, looking at talent-wise, looking at the swagger that is in the training facility during camp, during everything else, this is the closest team to that energy level. Not talent, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to go, and that's an outrageous statement, but this is the most similar culture that we've had since those early 2000s teams.
Well,
this is the Miami bringing the swagger back, and they just need to prove it.
Yeah, and I wasn't even looking at that route. Like, I'm not talking about before season. I'm talking about now, after week 1, looking at it. Because this is what I'm looking at. You dominate Florida at home, right? Florida gets dominated in their own house, right, with recruits there. Florida State has lost twice, their first 2 games. The ACC looks like it could be in shambles. That being said, with Florida and Florida State being bad, you're going to dominate the whole state in recruiting. This is the time to rack in all these recruits, right? ACC in shambles. You should be able to walk into the ACC championship game. It's just perfect. All the pieces are falling into place for Miami that all they have to do is not fuck up. All they have to do is just make it. And you are going to go through the roof. Recruiting's going to go crazy. You're going to keep stacking classes. And by the time Florida and Florida State figure their shit together, Miami is going to be such a tough team to play in the state of Florida. It's going to be an uphill climb for both those universities, which in my opinion, even back in the early 2000s, that wasn't the case. Florida was still good. Florida, people forget, 2006, they went and played for a national championship. Florida State was still very good that time, right? Mm-hmm. So this is like a once-in-a-generation type thing that could happen to Miami just because of the way it's falling.
Yeah. But the pieces are all falling together for Miami to be good, and this is why I've been so big on them this offseason. Like, it truly feels like the swagger is finally coming back. Now, we just need to make sure we win it. The mindset of the entire team is underdog. Everyone's kind of been counting them out. We've been called the off-season fucking champions for like the last 4 or 5 years with Mario Cristobal. I guess 3 years with Mario Cristobal, but every year we're called the off-season champions, and now we're finally getting to show that with all the off-season recruiting we've been, with all the pieces that we need, with Mario telling all the old players that don't fit the culture that he feels is needed at Miami that go hit the road, we're finally got the team that we need. We finally got the players we want, and we got the staff that we need. So this team, it's all in. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we win a championship, but we're putting our name on the fucking map.
And let's switch gears here, and let's talk about the All-State kickoff game in Atlanta, UGA versus Clemson. Mike, UGA is once again gravity.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is gravity slowly starts to lean on you, and then it just tips over, and all of a sudden you're on the ground, and you look up, and it's fucking a blowout. It's 34-3, right? That being said, I don't want to talk about the defense for Georgia. I want to talk about the offense. They went into the half. They made adjustments. Everyone steps up. Let's start with Carson Beck. Super efficient. 23 of 33, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, never put the football in harm's way, no turnovers, right? He, in my opinion, once again shows that he is an NFL-ready quarterback of just standing in the pocket, doling the ball out, not putting it in harm's way, let your playmakers go out there. And that being said, our biggest gripe was they have to replace the talent they lost last season, right? Receiver stepped up in a huge way. London Humphreys, 2 catches, 63 yards and a touchdown. Arian Smith, 5 catches, 56 yards. Lawson Lucky, one of the tight ends, 2 for 37. Dominic Lovett, 3 for 33. Dylan Bell, the other tight end, 4 for 32. And Colby Young, 2 for 15, a touchdown with an amazing catch on the fade.
Go you.
Amazing catch on the fade. I think this just shows you, Mike, right here, that they've got 6 guys they can get the ball to in the air. And not to mention, I'm not even bringing up the one catch for 24 yards from, hello, Nick Frazier. We were talking about it. A Georgia running back was going to have to step up with the other two running backs being out. The first guy they put in,
true freshman.
The first guy they put in didn't get it done, wasn't getting it done. Props to Georgia to go, you know what, let's throw the true freshman into the fire. The true freshman, Mike, goes 11 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown, 1 reception for 24 yards. So he's sitting right around 100 yards all purpose, right? He's going to be a beast in a few years. I don't expect him to get much more playing time besides
he can still get redshirted, especially when Etienne and their number 2 guy comes back.
But then again,
there's no reason to have him there if these guys produce at that level.
And then again, I think Georgia kind of proves to you that when people talk about, oh, this guy's out, oh, this guy's out, you know, oh, they lost all this talent in the NFL, they just show you again, well, next 5-star up, and his name was Nick Frazier.
It's not a rebuild, it's a reload.
Yeah, so he is dominant. I think Georgia's offense came back, and 34 points against Clemson's defense was very impressive, in my opinion. And then UGA's defense is still elite. Doesn't matter who they lose, Mike. They held Cade Klubnik to 142 yards passing. They held, listen to this crazy stat. They held Clemson's offensive run game to 23 carries for 46 yards. 46 yards. They dominated the entire game on defense. That being said, we know Georgia's good. Let's transition over to Clemson, Mike. Clemson's offense is still extremely poor. I don't think they took any steps forward on offense. It's hard to tell because they are playing Georgia. However, that being said, they still don't have anybody out wide to help their quarterback. No one's getting open. There's no production from their receivers. They can't get any explosive plays. They couldn't capitalize with short fields that they were getting from Georgia in the first half. In my opinion, they could have easily been going to the half, Mike, if they could get some explosive plays leading. It would have changed the whole mindset of the game. Georgia's offense was struggling in the first half with having newer running backs, what receiver is going to step up. You know what I mean? That being said, Dabo Swinney, I think we're on a bad path. And what pisses me off the most, Mike, is Clemson fans continue to make excuses for him. Continue to make excuses for him. You've dug this hole of we're not getting anyone in the transfer portal, right? Because they don't fit our culture. Dude, wake the fuck up. Your skill players suck on offense. I don't care what you tell yourself. They fucking suck on offense. And I'm sorry to any Clemson fans out there, but you guys backing up Dabo Swinney because he has 2 national championships, even though he's been on a slow decline coming down the mountain here, you keep saying it's okay, we're riding with Dabo, we're okay with what he's doing. You're only moving the bar to mediocre. And once you are accepting that it's okay to win 8 games or 9 games, there's no coming back from that. You're going to start losing recruits. I think it's very poor direction they're going in, Mike. I think some of his post-game quotes was ridiculous, talking about, well, Georgia does this to a lot of teams. Well, brother, you're not a lot of teams. You're the head coach for fucking Clemson.
Yeah, that's what I was going to harp on about. I was like, yeah. I get everyone trying to defend Dabo if he were to be dominant at one area of the field. Like, he's a very good defensive guy. The team itself is a very good defensive team. However, Georgia, yes, they're the number 1 team in the country. They beat up most people. But if you guys are contenders or champions like you guys say you are, you're not letting Georgia put up 34 on you. You're not letting Georgia hold you to 200 yards of total offense.
Yep.
Like, there is an issue. And when you're letting teams like Georgia bully you in all facets of the game, like, yeah, you scored 3 points and it was close at halftime. Well, Kirby Smart, also the way he coaches, he kind of goes slow in the first half. He kind of keeps you in the game, lets you think that's the game plan, lets you think you're doing good. And then all of a sudden, the second half, it's not even the same team you're playing. You don't know how to adjust because it's too fucking late. And they're driving up and down the field on you, doing whatever, while still holding you to nothing on offense.
Yep. And regardless what you think of how good Georgia is, this is what I'm going to say to that. I go back to last season, Mike. An Auburn team scored 20 points with less than 100 yards passing. Their coaches were able to scheme on offense to create explosive plays and score. Vanderbilt was able to scheme explosive plays on offense to keep it close for a long time against Georgia. Missouri was able to keep it a dogfight for a long time against Georgia.
South Carolina,
same way. There is teams out there with way less talent than you.
Put up a better fight.
That put up much better fights. Okay? So I don't know if it's part arrogance from Clemson and their game plans of going, we have just as good talent as they do. We can do what we want. Instead of going, hey, Georgia's fucking great. this is what we're going to do to try to steal some big plays. Like, I honestly think that Clemson just went out there on offense, Mike, was like, we're going to run our offense. And Georgia's going to have to stop us. Like, I think they're in that mindset still of the early, 2019, 2018 years where they're dominant on offense and they have big explosive weapons and they just don't know what to do now. I mean, like, it baffles me.
Yeah, I just gave Clemson too much credit. They didn't even have 200 yards of offense.
No, I mean, it's just such a poor performance. But
you can't let Georgia treat you like you're a fucking middle of the pack team, and then you still say, "Yeah, but it's Georgia. It's fine. They do this to everyone."
Yeah, it's
you have to at some point compete with them if you think you're that level of football program.
I agree, and it's just a bad direction in my opinion. But let's go to Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Notre Dame, in my opinion, was just the better football team, Mike, and it showed that as the game went on. Their defense was good. Their quarterback is better, like I was talking about earlier. The one key to watch, one of the big things was it was going to be an ugly, gritty game. What quarterback could kind of give them the edge? What running game could help out their quarterback? We talked about one of the big keys was the team that ran the ball better was ultimately going to have a better decision or the chance to make or to win the game, and that was Notre Dame. We talked about all week last week, Mike, what to watch. Notre Dame's offensive line versus Texas A&M's D-line, right? Mm-hmm. 0 sacks allowed, 34 carries for 198 yards and 2 touchdowns, 5.8 yards per carry. I don't think people need to overreact with this performance for Texas A&M. It's just year one, right? Year one. I think you being the favorite was kind of ridiculous. I know a little bit overrated, but they're going to go in the right direction. It's fine. You just got to give them time. I think that ultimately they played a pretty good game. And, Riley Leonard was good. I mean, he didn't do great, but he was good. He did nothing to lose them a game. On the flip side to that, Connor Wegman threw 2 picks, 100 yards passing, 12 for 30. This was his biggest game of his life. I understand he has talent, but at some point he's got to show me one of these big games, Mike. He's got to show it to me. And I think, though, before I write him off, I need to watch him play against a team this year with some like-minded talent. I think a lot of people kind of slept on Notre Dame coming into this game. I mean, looking at their schedule, they could easily be a playoff team. But I just need to see more out of A&M's offense this season. That's ultimately going to determine how many games they win because their defense was good. I mean, holding Notre Dame to only 23 points, that's a win. If you would have told me that it would have held Notre Dame to 23 points, I'd be like, damn, probably taking Texas A&M. But the 13 points kind of scares me.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game I didn't get to watch the second half of. You saw me. I was a little fucking intoxicated after watching the Miami-Florida game, and I think I only remember like the first quarter and a half of this game before I just kind of needed to get a little timeout. So I'm glad we finally don't have football for a few days so I can actually go back and watch some of these games I missed because I want to see what the fuck happened. Because that first quarter and a half was just ugly for both teams. Neither team could move the ball. No one was getting shit done. Riley Leonard didn't look great. Connor Weigman looked piss poor. Like you said, it was a lot of the same issues we've always seen. Like Rush, dude looks like he's moving 500 miles per hour but only processing things at a slow rate. Like forcing himself to make stupid throws and stupid fucking decisions. The footwork was atrocious. It's a game I want to see more of. And I'm not counting Weigman out. He's still one of my, probably within my top 6 quarterbacks that are ready to go to the NFL in college. But I really just got to see more from him. Like, this was such a bad performance that if he can't get past this then he's going to find his draft stock go from first round to fucking undrafted.
But this is like my whole thing with him is you go back and you watch some of his, I'm going to say big games because this was the biggest game he's ever played, but some of the other games against teams that had great defenses, he did the same thing. Sped up, panicking in the backfield. The difference is in those games, he was able to extend plays with his legs. A lot of people forget about that. This game, he was not. They kept him in the pocket. I think he had 10 carries for like 7 yards. Something ridiculous, right? On the flip side, Riley Leonard ran for like 50 yards. He was able to extend plays with his legs when the pocket was breaking down and get some first downs and just little things like that across the entire game, I think is what pushed Notre Dame to be 10 points better on offense.
Yeah.
But that being said, Texas A&M, don't panic. Long season. I think you guys you're going to be fine. I think you're still 8-win.
You played a top defense in the country, number 5 team right now in the AP polls. Like, it's fine. Connor Weigman just needs to get a head on his shoulders. There's a lot of pressure on him. He knows he's up on pretty much his final year of college football. I think he can go back if he wants to play more, but right now he's looked at as a first-round pick, top 3 QB prospect in the draft.
It's wild to me right now, but
yeah.
Anyway, Notre Dame real quick. Notre Dame, Mike, after this game with this huge win, when we're talking about making a playoff run and being that thorn in everyone's side by making the playoffs, right? What people don't realize is if Notre Dame makes the playoffs, it's going to hold an SEC team out, a Big Ten team out, an ACC team out. Some kind of conference is going to get fucked over by Notre Dame getting in. However, looking at Notre Dame's rest of their schedule, Mike, when I look at it,
it's not easy.
There's only 4 big games left for them. Mm-hmm. Louisville, Georgia Tech, Florida State, USC. All of a sudden,
I thought they had Ole Miss on there too.
No. Those are the only 4 big games they have left. In my opinion, Louisville might be tough. I think Louisville.
I want to see more from Louisville. They played an easy opponent.
I agree.
They played, Austin Peay?
Something like that. That being said, though, Georgia Tech's a lot better than we thought. That's why I put that on here as a game. But however, Georgia Tech's just going to run the ball. I think Notre Dame's defense is too good.
I want to see Georgia Tech play a team that is good, that is, quote-unquote, not Florida State.
Yeah, I agree. Then that other third game I had as a big game was Florida State. Now all of a sudden you're looking at that, you're like, Notre Dame might beat the shit out of Florida State, right?
After watching what Boston College did to them last night, yeah, I think Notre Dame wins by fucking 30.
But the last game on here that I put as a big game is USC. USC with a great performance, all of a sudden turns around and you're like, holy shit, they could be a playoff team, right? So that is another tough game. But if they can win those 4 games, Notre Dame's in. They'd be undefeated, barring an absolute disaster. So let's get into the game that disappointed us all. Penn State, West Virginia. What a disappointment. Big weather delay in the middle. Didn't matter. They're up 20-3 at the time. They finished 34-12. Before we go on and talk about Penn State and Drew Allar, I was going to talk about Penn State's offense. I got to give them hats off. Hats off to them. What did they struggle with last year? They weren't taking any big play shots at all, right? They took shots down the field, and we knew what they were going to do. They were going to dominate in the trenches. But those big shots down the field produced a lot of short fields for them to just power the ball into the end zone. Drew Allar, 11 for 17, 216 yards and 3 touchdowns. God, I'm sorry. Listen, we got to pump the brakes with this kid, okay? We're 1 game in, and my man threw the ball 17 times, and people are writing him off as a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, the stats don't show the true story. I really urge people to go back and watch it. A lot of the throws were off target. The receivers had to work back to it. He should have, I think, 2 more turnovers on there that the refs kind of gave back to Penn State. Like, Penn State won this game. Don't get me wrong. Penn State won this game.
I just think officiating as a whole this weekend was terrible.
Yeah, the officiating in this game particular to me, I thought was horrendous. Like, it's I don't know between this one and the Colorado game, which one was worse.
Yep, and the LSU last night, it's Tuesday now. LSU on Sunday, there was some play calls for both teams getting penalties where I was like, dog, it's a big game. What the fuck are we doing, ref?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
The one that speaks to me in particular was the drive that we were watching. If fucking Drew Allar gets tackled, ball gets stripped from him while he's on top of the other guy.
Yep.
They go and review it because they label it as a fumble on the field. They go back and review it, and they're like, nah, it's overturned. But on that entire thing, the dude never touched the ground.
Yep.
That ball should be West Virginia's ball. Instead, Penn State turned around and scored a touchdown off that drive.
Yep. And then on the flip side, you've got West Virginia going down the field. They're clear as day, don't get the fucking first down. He's short by at least a half a yard. Could have been a yard. They give it to West Virginia, right? Then, right after that, a little bit before that drive, going into halftime, Drew Allar throws a deep shot. Props to Penn State, though, because taking the deep shot, you never know what can happen. Clear fucking major push-off, gets the catch, and then the same drive, they throw a fade route to the end zone for another push-off for a touchdown.
Yeah.
So it's just like, guys, I understand. This was like the reversed opposite of the LSU game. The LSU game, they weren't allowing any of the defenders to be handsy or do anything. Mm-hmm. This game, it's like, we're not going to throw any flags.
Yeah.
We're just going to do whatever.
Backyard football.
Yeah.
NFL Street. So
that was insane. But that being said, what an awesome game by Penn State's offensive line. 42. This is like, look, I've already said it for the last 2 games. These offensive lines, in my opinion, from these winning teams are showing you why they're playoff caliber teams. Yeah. 42 carries for 222 yards and a touchdown, 5.3 per carry. Nick Singleton, 13 carries for 114 yards and a touchdown. Their running game is a problem. And now that Penn State is, saying, hey, fuck it, we're going to take the top off and take deep shots, all of a sudden you've got to make sure you're 2 high safeties and so you don't get beat on these one-on-ones because Penn State just proved that the receivers can go up and get the ball. I think they're just setting up to have a very successful season, Mike. They gave up no sacks, which is another big thing in this game. I mean, and then on the flip side of that, Penn State's defense dominated. We knew their defense was the strength of the team, but they literally held them to 12 points. And one of the things that I encourage people to go back and watch film, if you're a football nerd like I am, is the trenches. The trenches are so awesome to watch in all these games. But in this game in particular, what was the one thing we talked about last week, Mike? Garrett Green's ability to slip the pocket and extend first downs. What does Penn State do? We don't give a shit about sacks, Mike, but we're going to collapse the pocket and keep him in the pocket so he can't run, and he's got to throw it. They didn't necessarily speed rush up the field, give him an easy lane to scramble out. They just kind of held, pocket collapses, sack, right? That's why they only had like 2 or 3 sacks on the game. I think it was only 2 sacks, but they kept him in the pocket, and they locked down the receivers in the back end to allow that pocket to collapse and for him to panic and have to either throw it away, throw an interception, or whatever the case was. But on the other side, their D-line is so fucking good, they eliminated the ground game. So Garrett Green had nothing to do. It was, hey, my receivers can't get open. Hey, we can't run the ball. Hey, I can't run. So it's like, what did you want the guy to do? I still think he's a great player. It's just they were outmatched in almost every position in this game.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State confirmed what we already knew is that their defense is going to be very good. We confirmed that their O-line is going to be very good. We confirmed their running game is going to be very good. Their passing game against better defenses is still very much a concern to me. I don't think this was a good showing of how good or bad the team is because I believe they overplayed, and I also think they got the benefit of the doubt on a lot of these throws. It was kind of piss-poor defense on West Virginia's part in the air, but that was probably because they were doing everything they could to try to stop the fucking run. So I would love to see them play a better defense. However, like at their schedule, there are only 2 teams that I can see that will compete with these guys is USC and Ohio State.
Yeah.
USC, we've already talked about a little bit. Their defense got a little bit better. We'll talk more about them later. In Ohio State, they didn't really impress me, I'll be honest.
But that being said, though, I think with Penn State finally realizing that, hey, our defense is a bunch of dogs and we're not going to give up many points, and they're allowing the offense to take huge shots down the field. And I think if they even pick the ball off a couple times on these deep shots, it's like flipping the field. It's like a punt. Nothing, no harm, no foul. The other teams are not going to score 90% of the time, in my opinion. So I think if they continue to take these deep shots, it is really going to benefit them this season. And all of a sudden, after this huge win, you look at their schedule like you're talking about, they've got Bowling Green next, Kent State, Illinois, UCLA. So they're undefeated, in my opinion, going to USC. They're going on the road to a USC team where USC just proved to us they're playing a much better brand of defense. They have an explosive offense, so that's going to be a kind of a cool matchup, in my opinion, Mike, because it's going to be strength for strength. It's going to be USC's offense versus Penn State's defense. What are we going to see there? And they have to go all the way across the country to Los Angeles to play the game. So mark that one down. That's on October 12th. Then they go on the road to Wisconsin. They're going to beat the fuck out of them. Then they host Ohio State, which you have to assume is going to be a whiteout, Mike, on 11-2, and you have no idea what's going to happen in that environment. So that being said, though, they could easily find their way, Mike, with how hard, or how Oregon looked, how Ohio State kind of struggled in the first half, even though they won by 50, right? They can find themselves in the Big Ten championship. Like Penn State could with their schedule. They don't have to play Iowa, right? Other than Ohio State and USC, they don't play Oregon, right? So especially with these teams like Ohio State having to play Oregon and Ohio State having to play Penn State, you beat Ohio State, you're making it.
Yeah, I think Penn State's big thing they need to harp on when they get to these bigger matchups is turnovers. They had 2 turnover-worthy plays, and that's not counting the fumble that Drew Allar lost and the fumble that Drew Allar got back because of the refs. So they could have easily had 4 turnovers in this game, and that's something that they need to clean up when they start playing these better defenses.
Yeah, and I think they will. I think they'll clean it up. It's first game of the season again. I think ultimately they played a very clean game for penalties-wise in that hostile environment, which is a good thing to see on the road, especially in week 1. But, yeah, I mean, if Penn State goes 10-2, I don't know how you keep them out. Like that's my thing with them. But
no.
LSU USC, right? The game in Vegas last night, as we record this on a Tuesday, they played on Monday night. They played on Sunday night. Jeez. Hats off to both defenses. Much improved. I mean, in my opinion, the defenses stole the show. The under hit by a mile. Everyone thought this was going to be a high-scoring game. They both got new defensive coordinators. They locked down. They stopped runs. They limited big plays for the most part. minus USC just having like 3 catch of the year candidates, which is insane by the receivers. But again, this all comes down, in my opinion, to LSU's inability with the lead to stomp on the opposing team's neck. They keep blowing late leads by getting conservative. Brian Kelly going in the press conference and slamming his fist down on the table, talking about the players on the sideline, they just keep doing this. That's something, in my opinion, you say in your coaches meeting. Why would you say that and spread doubt after week 1 to your fan base? It's like, wait, is there a problem? Like, are our players lackadaisical?
For me, this shows inadequacy to Brian Kelly, because this has happened every year that he's been a head coach there, and at some point it's not the players. The
my
entire
thing is
scheme, like you said, went slow.
Yeah, my thing is bro. I understand you think your players might have got lackadaisical with the lead because they might have up 10. Your defense was playing great. But that being said, you guys throttled your offense way back with, in my opinion, is a super underrated Garrett Nussmeier, who's going to be a great NFL quarterback if he keeps this up. Why not take the top off? Kyron Lacey, 7 receptions, 94 yards, and a touchdown. He caught 5 of those receptions on the first drive.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The first quarter,
drive.
The dude was going fucking insane, and then he wasn't a factor for the rest of the game.
That's the wild stat. First drive, he catches 5 passes, doesn't catch any passes the rest of the half. Second half, he only catches 2 receptions.
Yeah.
So I'm like, dude, get the motherfucker the ball. Throw it deep. Take the top off. Stretch the field.
The dude who was literally just burning everyone alive and being wide open on every route he ran.
Yeah, I mean, you again have one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in the country, right? Use it to your advantage. I think if they want to win these big games at home, they're going to be coming up like Ole Miss and Alabama and Oklahoma at the end of the season. They have to do that. They're going to have to stretch the field vertically and take what the defense is giving them deep, because Garrett Nussmeier played great, in my opinion. 29 of 38, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, interception, right? In my opinion, Garrett Nussmeier played the better game than Miller Moss, but the difference is USC's offensive scheme was allowing Miller Moss to throw the ball deep and stretch the field.
They got more aggressive as the game went on.
Yes, which is what you need to do. What's the worst that can happen? You're down by 10, you turn it over. Oh, fuck, we're going to lose. Who cares? You got to try to make it back into a football game anyway. That's what LSU was not doing on offense, so props to USC for that. But, God, at some point, I still think Brian Kelly's the right fit for them. I still think he is. They won 10 games back-to-back. They're going to probably win 10 games again this year if they can win some of these big games at home, right? But I would just love for them, especially maybe now. Maybe they go back, they watch the film, Mike, and they're like, you know what? Our defense is a lot better than we thought. We'll start to throw it deep, stretch it, take more, chances. Our quarterback probably isn't going to put the ball in harm's way. So, but on the flip side, USC did dodge a lot of bullets on offense. There was a ton of plays where they fumbled, recovered their own fumble, balls batted up in the air where they just couldn't get out to get them. I think they batted 3 or 4 balls up in the air.
There was one drive where I know it was 2, maybe even 3 in a row.
Yes. So LSU's defense played great. I mean, if you told me that LSU's defense was going to hold them to 27 points, I'm like, oh, LSU's fucking beating their ass like 45-27. But man, they got to get something going on that offense, and I don't think it's offensive players. I think it was the scheme. They got to get it going, got to take the field deep. But all of a sudden, Mike, we're sitting here now, and we're talking about USC who can hold the team with a high-powered offense to 20 points, and it's like all of a sudden everybody who has them on their Big Ten schedule is like, oh, shit, hold on. They're actually playing defense, and it just makes it a little more interesting going forward in these big games, in my opinion. But I think this, in my opinion, I don't know what USC was looking at for their outlook on the season. I'm not a USC fan. I'm not a USC coach, but this totally changed their entire outlook for me.
Yeah, their stock definitely went up for me.
Yeah, like this is a team that could make the playoff with their schedule, in my opinion. Miller Moss with 27 for 36, 378 yards and a touchdown. The thing I liked about this game is when Caleb Williams played there, it was like they had to score and it had to be through the air. Or what USC was doing great, in my opinion, for this particular game was throwing the ball to get down to the red zone and running it in, showing that they can run through an SEC defensive line and score in the red zone. Because people know as you get in the red zone throwing the ball, it gets very compressed. The DBs are all on top of each other. There's not as much room to navigate. So the ability to run the ball in this game was huge, in my opinion. If they can keep doing that going forward, they're going to be just fine in the Big Ten this year because they're going to have to be able to run the ball in some of these cold environments and these great defenses. But talking about their schedule, remaining schedule, They got Utah State, and they're going at Michigan, right? The at Michigan game is going to show us what this USC team is like. Michigan could be coming off. They're going to be coming off I have to pull up their schedule. I know USC is going to be coming off a bye week going into Michigan, which is huge. But, man, I don't know how you don't give USC the leg up in that environment right now after what Michigan did week 1. Then they go home against Wisconsin, at Minnesota, home against Penn State, at Maryland, home against Rutgers, at Washington, home against Nebraska, at UCLA, home against Notre Dame. So they alternate every other game, home and away, home and away, home and away.
Michigan plays Texas next week, home against Arkansas State after that, and then they play USC.
So USC have a leg up, fresh, coming into that game. I don't know how you don't give it to USC right now. And unless Michigan goes out this week and shows you that they just had a hiccup week 1, which could totally be. It might be an overreaction.
Michigan's defense still looked absolutely lights out.
Well,
it was just offensively, they struggled to kind of get the run game going. They tried to force a pass game for a while, and it didn't look like they had the personnel for it. I think it was just a slow start. I'm not worried at all yet for Michigan being anything more than like a 2-loss team.
The only thing that scares me with Michigan, Mike, was Fresno State in the passing game was low-key cooking them up. Like, their DBs were struggling. Who's the really good corner they have?
Will Johnson, but he only played 7 snaps.
Not Will Johnson.
Yes. Or, sorry,
Who's got the pick 6?
That was him.
He did not only play 7 snaps.
He did.
I can assure you, I watched the game. The dude got absolutely smoked on a double move. Smoked on a double move, and they fucking dropped the pass in the end zone. Smoked on a double move. So I don't know what stat that is, but that's not correct. I'm telling you. I watched the entire game. So I'm not worried about him at all. He'll rebound, but the fact that Michigan was struggling in the secondary is what's worrying me for the upcoming Texas game and for a game like USC, because I have no fear in Michigan stopping the run. They're going to fucking stop the run. So you better be able to throw it behind them. So that was my thing there. But, yeah, I mean, great game plan by USC. They did a fantastic job. I think both those teams, honestly, I know it hurts for LSU, but I think that honestly made me think that you guys are better than I thought as well. Just didn't close. So anything else, Mike, on USC or LSU?
Florida State, Boston College?
Yeah, we can briefly talk about it. I didn't want to talk about it because it's a shit game after Florida State's performance. I mean, their fans, I don't know if you saw the clip on Twitter, Mike, but for guys that can't see me, they were doing the tomahawk chop, and all of them had frowning faces.
Everyone was just upset.
They were just like, what are we watching? What is this performance you put on the field for our first home game? And hats off, though, to Bill O'Brien. We talked about, Mike, at the beginning of the season, that Bill O'Brien was going to make this culture of we're not scared to play anybody and go out and win big games. And we talked about what was the big game they were going to win this year, Mike. And they rip it off week 1. Yeah. They go, yep, we'll take down number 10 Florida State, right? Just up, goodbye. And how do they do it? They dominated on the ground. Dominated on the ground, Mike. And if you're a Florida State fan, you've got to be scared. Because that's the second week in a row you've given up over 200 yards rushing. Mike, 200 yards rushing. We talked about how good Florida State's front seven was and that they were going to be the best part of their team, and they can't stop a leak. Like, they've got the leak is gone. The dam has blown open. They are getting run over. I don't know how much you watched the game last night. Did you watch it a lot?
Yeah, I watched.
Did you?
When it was 0-0 right before Boston College scored.
Did you, the most critical time where I was like, Florida State has a serious problem on defense with stopping the rush was, do you remember Florida State finally gets something going? They go down the field, they make a great catch in the end zone, and they score a touchdown. Now, all of a sudden, the game is close, right? Mm-hmm. What does Boston College do? They run the ball. I think they throw it once. They run all the way down the field with run plays. They play action, and they throw it a little flats route to the running back in the end zone. He scores. Yeah. I'm like, holy fucking shit. Florida State, you're cooked.
You talking about that wheel route?
No. I'm not even got to that point yet. Okay. I'm coming up to that. I'm talking about, do you remember when Florida State scores? I think it's like at this time, it's like 21-13 or something like that, because Florida State went for 2 at the beginning. Florida State, the crowd's starting to get back into it. They're getting loud. They're feeling like they have a chance. Boston College gets the ball back. They run the ball every play down the field, and they throw. They were going into the end zone. They threw a little dump off from like the 5-yard line.
Yeah.
To the running back, he walks in the end zone uncovered. I'm like, holy shit, they just ran the ball every play, and they threw it on the last play, and they scored. But going to the wheel route, I'm sitting there watching the fucking game as a fan of football, and I'm like, they've run the wheel route 3 times up to this point. The first time, huge play. The second time, he dropped it. The third time, huge play. I'm like, run it again. Run it again. They're not going to cover it. They're not making any adjustments. What do? They run that motherfucker again.
Pre-play there, you saw the linebacker and safety arguing on who got who, and they both ended up covering the same man.
How do you not fix the wheel issue after the first time they bust your ass on it for like 50 yards?
Yeah.
Like, the second time, you're lucky. He dropped it. The third time, they bust your ass again, and you're telling me, okay, you come to the sideline. You got iPads nowadays. You can be like, hey, look, cover this son of a bitch. This is their biggest play they're running in the passing game. You still don't cover it.
Yeah.
So
there's just a lack of adjustments. The game plan, I can't tell if it's because DJU is just that bad, which I do think he is terrible, or if the game scheme is that bad. I think it's a mix of both, and that the coaches know they can't trust DJU at all. And they play such a conservative offensive game plan, hoping that their defense bails them out. And their defense is just not what they thought it was.
Yep. But to go on top of the DJU thing, I know. When a team is bad, who is the most popular player on the team?
Oh, the easiest thing
backup quarterback.
Is the quarterback.
Well, the most popular player on a shitty team is the backup quarterback. Because
now
everyone's pointing their finger like, sit him. In my opinion, it'd be worse to sit him. Because if you do, you're bringing a true freshman with one of the shittiest O-lines I've seen at Florida State in a long time. They can't run the ball. They can't protect the quarterback. He's getting fucking drilled as he's throwing to throw interceptions. Right. So in my opinion, bringing in a true freshman quarterback that you want to be the future of your program and getting him fucking killed or making him look like we talk about in the NFL, look like an absolute disaster.
You can absolutely break a 19-year-old kid and kill
his
all confidence
will be zero
if he goes out there and just gets shitted on, because the fan base is never going to trust him again.
No, and then they're going to be trying to get a guy in the portal. So in my opinion, you just rock with DJU. You've dug this grave for yourself.
Bruises.
Yes. Figure out ways to scheme players open. For fuck's sake, Clemson was able to make DJU a 10-win quarterback, okay? Now all of a sudden looks like the world's greatest coaching performance by Dabo. So figure it out. But the answer is not to play the backup quarterback. Unless you start to protect him and you start to run the ball.
They have the redshirt freshman that's ahead of the true freshman that they can play. The true freshman is supposed to be their future Hohenok or something like that. He was a very big touted guy in the fucking recruiting class last year, but I don't know.
It's just
I think they got to eat their bruises. Everyone's saying that Mike Norvell's on the hot seat. I think it's stupid. Mike Norvell's done too much for the program the last couple of years. One bad season is not going to kill him. It's just going to put him in a very bad taste with the media and put him in a hot seat to start next season.
Now, I'm not relating DJU to Bo Nix in any regard. But when shit was falling apart at Auburn and Brian Harsin's last couple of years, they sat Bo Nix down to play TJ Finley. We all watched TJ Finley play against Alabama this weekend at Western Kentucky. He's fucking terrible. So this is what I'm talking about. Sitting a quarterback down in a bad program is not going to be your fix, no matter what the fans think. Now, obviously, we see Bo Nix has a fuck ton of talent. DJ doesn't have any talent, okay? But even if you think your backup's better, all of the other pieces, you have so many holes. Mike, it's like they're out here, they're like the FBI. They probably go into their Sunday morning, let's talk about the football game, and they've got a big bulletin board, a chalkboard, what's it called? Corkboard. They have a big corkboard up there, and it's got the little fucking pins with red lines going everywhere. We've got problems all over the fucking place. So just to go, let's take this pin out of the board and take DJU as the center of the cartel and replace his name is not going to fix the fucking problem with the pieces and problems they've got everywhere else. If Florida State wants to turn their season around, because I saw an interesting tweet, there was a poll going around saying who has a better chance to turn their season around, Florida State or Florida? And I don't think it's close. It's definitely Florida State. But if Florida State wants to change their program and turn it around this season, it's got to start with the defense. Yeah. If you can get your defense just to start to play okay instead of shitty, you can keep yourself in 90% of these ACC games.
Yeah, letting teams like Georgia Tech and Boston College run the ball over you like they're Georgia. And
put no pressure on the quarterback.
Team.
You put no pressure on their quarterback, especially Boston College quarterback, where he's like, I just got to hand the ball off to run for 275 yards on the ground, and then, you're going to not cover the wheel route, so I'm just going to go and throw it over here.
Yeah.
So it's just insane. They've got so many areas they can work on, but I start to worry about when a team has 2 really bad losses like this after being picked to go to the college football playoff, does a team start to quit?
Yeah, I mean, their season's essentially over by week 1 of college football.
For playoff hopes, yeah, it's 100% over. Now you're about to see what kind of culture
also conference-wise, you have 2 conference losses, and you're in week 1. You started off as the favorite to win the conference, favorite to go represent the conference in the playoffs, and you're 0-2 in conference play against teams that really no one put
bottom
any
of the
kind of
barrel
faith
in
to.
conference, yeah.
You just went ahead and went from 10 to unranked by the time the first AP poll came out, and both the dudes that beat you are now ranked. Like, you fucked up. Your season's over. I don't want to be the guy that overreacts, but 2 straight losses to teams that you shouldn't lose, and you got the hardest part of your schedule still coming up, you're fucked.
See, when people talk about, I want to say Billy Napier because we're just talking about Florida, but Mike Norvell. When people talk about Mike Norvell in the hot seat, these 2 games, in my opinion, does not put him on the hot seat. What puts him on the hot seat, if we're going to be honest, Mike?
He loses the locker room.
Well, exactly. A good coach can create a winning culture. If this team just says, you know what, we were picked to make the playoffs, fuck this season, we're just going to fold and play shitty football from here to the house, he's immediately on the hot seat. If all of a sudden you win 5 games, yeah, the hot seat is on maximum level going into next season, and he has to win.
Yeah.
So I think the culture ultimately will decide if his seat is safe going into next season.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance in hell we see him get fired, but I think there's absolute fucking...
No fire.
Absolute that he is on the shortest of leashes next year.
No fire. I think this is just determining if he's on the hot seat for the following season.
Yeah.
Because
he can turn it around and win 10 straight from this point on, and he's fine.
Well, boosters and fans can accept an 8-win season out of Florida State this year and go, you know what? We really fucking missed with DJU.
Yeah.
But what they can't accept is your team quitting and you losing the locker room and winning 5 games. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden it's like, hey, buddy, if you don't win 9 games next season, your ass is gone.
Yeah.
Because people, you got to realize, this is not a small program. Florida State is one of the biggest programs in college football. They expect to make the playoff in this new 12-team playoff, or at least compete to get there, and the ACC championship every year.
They need to start recruiting better. They've been outside the top 25 every year Mike Norvell's been there, except for 1 season, I think, and that was 2 years ago. And, I mean, they're focusing so much on the transfer portal to bail them out, and I think this is the absolute epitome of, like, what you can't do with the transfer portal. It's like the reverse opposite of Dabo and Clemson. Is Dabo gets no recruits or out of the transfer portal, you get everyone in the transfer portal and just expect your team to gel and know how to work together. You need to get specific pieces and not just fucking try to rehaul your roster every year, because this doesn't fucking work.
It also makes me start to wonder, though, if we're being honest, of how much of their success last season was the 9 or 10 players that are now playing in the NFL, or was it coaching? Yeah. And I think this season and next season will determine that, because this smells, everyone knows I talk about Auburn all the time, and I'm an Auburn fan. This smells so much like Gene Chizik, in my opinion, of, hey, you win 8 games your first year, you win a national championship team in your second year, which they went 13-0, guys. I know they won a national championship, but they got fucked out of playing for one last year, right? So you win 8 games your first year, national championship your second year, 8 games your following year, and then you win 3 games. This is where that train is heading, in my opinion. If you win 5 games this year and all of a sudden you win 3 games next year, your program's fucked. He's gone. You're having to rebuild again after that Willie Taggart era of bullshit. You'd be right back where you started, pre-Mike Norvell.
And it doesn't get any easier for him here. Next week they play one of the better Group of 5 teams in Memphis.
Yeah, people don't realize, like, Florida State fans, wake up. Memphis has a really good shot to make the playoff.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about a hot seat turning up to max? Let Memphis come in there, who, in my opinion, is better than Georgia Tech, better than Boston College. Let them come in there and beat you by 20.
Yeah.
And watch how fast your fans
after that, you're on the road going over to Cal, who at that point, Ott is probably going to be healthy, and he's one of the best running backs in college football. You're letting these other dudes run for 200 yards on you. Let Cal's offensive line figure out how to block and make holes for this guy with your subpar defense.
Other than the cupcake games they have, I don't care who you could tell me that's left on their schedule besides like some small school. I don't have their schedule in front of me. But
let me pull it up because I don't know if they have any schools.
Well, they have to because they haven't played out of conference yet. So they have 3 games.
Notre Dame and Memphis are 2 of them.
Oh, yeah, they just pulled up. Well, you're right. So they have 1 game that's a guaranteed win.
SMU. So Memphis, Cal, SMU, Clemson, Duke, Miami, UNC, Notre Dame, Charleston Southern. That's
so Charleston Southern's guaranteed win.
And then they ended with Florida.
I can convince you that every team on that schedule has a chance to beat you if you play the way you just played these last 2 weeks. It's going to be a dogfight for every one of those games. And everyone, I know all these Florida State fans were talking all that ish in the beginning of the season about how fucked up Florida's situation is. They're terrible. And at the end of the year, we're going to beat them by 60 when they fired their coach. Well, let me tell you what. If you guys are a 4-win football team or a 5-win football team coming into that game with we expect Billy Napier to be fired, and now the players are rallying behind some kind of assistant coach, watch the fuck out, because you guys haven't proved you can stop the run. You can't do anything. Like, you cannot do anything offense or defensively correct right now. Yeah. Misaligning, uncovering people, it's just insane to me. Like, all these games that we guaranteed, we said that they were going to be 10-2. They're going to dominate these first 2 games. They would have to just get through this trap game of Memphis. It's a potential college football playoff contender, and all of a sudden we're talking about now Florida State could start out 0-3.
To me, the entire ACC is in absolute fucking the house is burning right now. Miami went, took a vacation for a week to go to Gainesville, and came back. The house is on fire. There's trash all over the place. People are trying to kill each other. Florida State and Clemson are dead in the corner. We're trying to figure out what the fuck's going on, and Miami's just standing in the corner like, what the fuck just happened?
And ACC fans out there, I wouldn't panic, because Clemson, as much as I hate Dabo saying what he did, it was Georgia. Clemson's going to be fine this season. NC State going out there and having a dogfight in the first half against Western Carolina.
They picked it up.
They picked it up, and they moved on, and also how much of that was them looking to this week coming up against Tennessee? Probably a lot, right? So I think the jury's still out. I think the ACC is still fine. Virginia Tech losing to Vanderbilt.
First half was just so slow for them, and they sped it up in the second half and gave themselves
too deep
life.
Of a hole.
But yeah, it was too little, too late.
Yeah, and hats off to Vanderbilt for that. I mean, you talk about getting a program-setting win of, hey, we're going in the right direction here at Vanderbilt. It's that game, because in the first half, you dominated in the trenches. You dominated on offense, which is nice to see. Your quarterback played great in the first half. So props to them. But, again, I still expect Virginia Tech to bounce back. I think we have a really interesting game. Obviously, we'll talk about it coming up here in the next day or two. But Georgia Tech, Syracuse is going to be a very interesting game to me. Syracuse played no defense whatsoever in that game, but offensively, they played great. Their quarterback transfer from Ohio State threw for 4 touchdowns, which is kind of what we expected when we talked about him, Mike, was he's playing against lesser talent now than he's used to at Ohio State with all that pressure. He's probably going to come in and thrive. He looked very good. Interesting game to watch, but ACC, don't panic. I mean, I saw a stat where it's like the 2 teams suing the ACC to get out are 0-2, and the rest of the ACC is like 15-1.
0-3.
Yeah, now 0-3. And the rest of the ACC is 15-1, so it's fine. I mean, I just think that the way these teams are, and hey, it's the first game of the season. I have seen many of teams struggle. I mean, we're critical on Ohio State because they were close with Akron in the beginning. They still won by 50. I think you're about to see a lot of these teams. You have to remember, this is Ohio State. So even though they're slow at first, their defense is good enough to hold it to 3 points. When you're NC State and your strength is your offense, you start slow. Western Carolina is able to keep it close, and then you see what happens when the offense takes off, and it's like, oh, we're fucked, right? Yeah. So I think you're going to see totally different teams next week for the ACC, and it'll be fine, in my opinion. But that being said, our best bets will come out next. We're all hot. We've got a lot of stuff coming out on YouTube and TikTok, so follow us on both those channels. Until next time, boys, peace. And that hot chip challenge is coming up, I promise you.
You're